Today, we're going to be talking about boundaries. How do I handle when the person I love the most is hurting me more than anybody else ever has in the world? What do I do? Now, this is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but it's not really taught about a lot. And it's not something that I think a lot of women, specifically ones that are really needing them, understand how to use them, how to set them, what they even mean, and what to do if they're crossed. So we're going to dive deep into that today, and we're going to unpack this a little more to understand how do we set boundaries and have them actually do something to help us in our life. We don't learn what it looks like to actually set healthy boundaries and be able to know what to do if those boundaries are crossed. And I'm going to actually connect this specifically to women who are going through the recovery journey with a husband who or partner who has porn addiction. So let's first start with what boundaries even are. What is and what is not a boundary? Unlike what you might think, boundaries are actually not to try and get somebody else to do something or to control them or change their behavior. Boundaries are what we're gonna do for us in order to control what we do have control over in our lives, which is us. Boundaries are there so that we can protect ourselves and know what we're going to need to do if a boundary is not respected. Now, there's actually a really important first step that most people skip. And in our recovery journey, I did not know that this was super important to do prior to setting boundaries with him. However, thankfully, I did do this first step, but most people don't even know that there should be a first step before boundaries are even being set. So first, let's go into that. What needs to happen before setting boundaries? A conversation. So that is step one, is you need to be getting on the same page about what it is that you both want. Because we're all humans, we all come into this world alone, we're all gonna leave this world alone. We all have the right to make decisions based on what we truly want in our life. So when it comes to a partner that we are wanting to make decisions with in order to move forward in our relationship, we gotta first find out, do they even want to be doing the things that I'm wanting to do with this relationship? Do they want the same thing I do for the relationship? So sitting down and having that very real conversation with them and letting them know, hey, I see you as a human being. I get that we may be on different pages with certain expectations, certain plans that we've had for our life together. So let's just really get real and talk about, what does that look like for us? What is it that you want with our relationship at this point? What is it that I want in our relationship at this point? For example, do you want monogamy? And if you say you do want monogamy, then what does that mean to you? Now, by definition, monogamy means that all sexual energy is given and received with one person, and that is your chosen partner. But that is not the way that a lot of the world sees monogamy now. So if that is not the definition that somebody else is choosing to go by, then that's really important information for you to know. Are you both on the same page or not? So once you know, okay, he says he wants monogamy too. He says he wants a close and connected relationship with me. He says he doesn't want anybody else in our relationship. He doesn't want pornogamy with porn in the relationship. Now, I want to speak to that for a minute, because a lot of people will say that they don't mind porn in their relationship or their partner using porn. A lot of people make this decision without truly understanding the impact of what it means to have any kind of sexual gratification given or received outside of the relationship, and the lack of closeness and a secure attachment and exclusivity that the person will ever get to experience in a truly monogamous relationship. So when those decisions are being made, I do encourage both partners to really do the research on what is it that happens in the brain and with your attachment to your partner and your attraction to your partner when you are using something outside of the relationship for gratification sexually. What studies have shown is that the brain goes through micro adaptations that eventually in time lead to pretty big adaptations, which means that they get desensitized to their partner. both physically, the way that they're attracted to them, and with stimulation to them. And it actually bonds them emotionally to the screen. There's emotional attachment that happens with pornography, and it takes that availability away from their attachment with their partner. And that's because of the neurochemicals that are released during orgasm. That's where things like fetishes come from, which sounds very strange, but when we orgasm, we attach to the thing that we're seeing. And that's why orgasm is a very powerful bonding tool to use in an exclusive and committed monogamous relationship. Sex can have incredible depth and meaning when it is used for that purpose with one partner in a monogamous relationship. And that is not something that can happen any other way. So now that you've gotten on the same page with your partner, now you're going to move on to step 2, which is where you're going to need to communicate very clearly what your needs and wants are. What is it that you need in order to feel safe in the relationship? This is one of the biggest mistakes that couples make in their communication, is that they're not speaking from their emotional depth. They're not speaking from the needs and the feelings that they have. They're speaking out of anger, they're speaking out of defense, they're speaking out of pain, and it comes out in a way that often makes our partners very, very defensive because they're not hearing us and what we're truly needing. So what you can do is you can communicate with the primary emotions first, thinking about, okay, how does this make me feel when he is using pornography? What primary emotions am I feeling deep down? Why does this hurt me? Why do I have a problem with this? Well, okay, it makes me feel angry because I am not being prioritized or seen or appreciated, and my attractiveness and my unique qualities, the things that make me who I am, aren't being seen or understood or loved. I don't feel cared for, and that makes me feel scared, because my bond to somebody that's supposed to be my primary attachment figure, who I'm supposed to be able to depend on, feel close to, and know that they're always going to be there for me, I feel fear that this is taking them away from me, and that this is going to destroy that connection that I really desperately need and want to have. So those are the primary emotions that you can say. This makes me feel betrayed. This makes me feel unsafe. This makes me feel unchosen, unseen, dismissed, ignored, invisible. That was one of the key words that I used when I was communicating to Rick my needs, when I let him know that porn was a deal breaker for me, is I let him know that because of his porn use, he didn't even notice me anymore. I would spend a long time picking out the right outfit and doing my hair and doing my makeup and trying to look pretty and smell good for him. I'd come downstairs and be ready to go somewhere with him, and he wouldn't even notice the effort that I put in. And that was because he had desensitized himself by all of the porn. And that made me feel invisible. It was an awful feeling to care so much about the person that I am exclusively committed to, and to be doing all these things for them and for them to not even notice. And then to top it off, to have him be noticing all these other people instead of me, and going to porn for his sexual gratification instead of enjoying that with me. It was excruciatingly painful and not something that was ever going to help me have the relationship that I truly needed and wanted. So next is step 3, and this is where the boundaries come in. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lay out very, very clearly what it is that you need in order to feel safe and loved, and the security that you can actually journey with him and move forward in the healing of your relationship. I'll tell you what, it is a privilege that you are staying in this with him. At no point are you obligated, if somebody is hurting you and being unfaithful to you, to stay in that relationship. So if you're gonna stay, that's up to him to care about the fact that you are willing to put that effort in to be able to do this with him and stay in the relationship. So now it's your turn to say, look, here are the things that I'm gonna need from you in order to be able to do this, because this is not easy for me. This is gonna be a lot of work for me too. And I'm willing to put in that effort as long as you are too. So laying out those boundaries and saying, I need things like you to leave your phone out of the bathroom for now when you're using the bathroom. I need you to let me know when you're not going to be home on time. I need you to make sure that you've deleted social media or other things that are typically used in order to access porn. I need you to put some sort of blockers or protection monitors on your devices so that it's harder for you to access porn and I can feel safe that I understand what's really my reality and whether you're using it. I require that you tell me within 24 hours if there is a relapse. And here's the most important boundary of all. All of these boundaries I just mentioned are great safety boundaries, but here's the one that is the one that matters most. I will need you to be getting help from a specialized source who understands what it truly takes to break this addiction by a certain time, or I cannot continue in this relationship. That is a boundary that is so necessary, and I'm going to tell you why. There's two main reasons this boundary is key. Number one, because this addiction is harder than drugs to overcome. They say that it is a stronger addiction than cocaine or heroin, and that the success rate of people who do not get help with this addiction is only about 5%. Now that statistic significantly skyrockets when you're actually working with somebody who can tell you exactly what it's going to take and exactly what steps you need to be working on in order to overcome this and in order to rebuild trust in your relationship and help your relationship to heal. I want to share with you one of the things that Rick told me later on in our process that I had no idea he was feeling when we were going through our recovery journey. And that was that he felt like it was so unfair that I gave him this boundary when he had no idea how to change this. Now, we had looked for help. We had gone and done research. We bought books. We were listening to podcasts. But there was so little real clear laid out information of how to beat this thing that he literally felt like he was feeling his way in the dark. And here I am at my breaking point telling him, hey, you don't get your shit together, I'm done because I can't handle this. You're hurting me too bad. And that kind of pressure for him where he didn't have a clue of how he was going to do this and he was just hoping he was going to figure it out was significantly stressful and hard for him. Now, the other reason why this is so important is because there's something in our brains, in all of us, that wants to stay as comfortable as possible. So we will naturally always try to avoid pain at all costs and pursue pleasure. So when you're dealing with addiction, until the pain of staying the same outweighs the perceived pain it's going to take to change, which to an addict is very painful. It's such an unknown for them. They have depended on this thing for so many years. They don't even know if they can change. So for them to step out into that unknown and actually believe that it's possible to change, they're going to have to see that it is absolutely not an option anymore to stay where they've been. So that is why the boundary of you will need to be getting enough help by a certain time is so important, because at that point, the pain to stay the same means they lose their relationship. That means that they are going to need to take those steps in order to be able to not have to face the pain of their relationship ending. So this is a huge boundary. It's so important. And a lot of women have a very hard time setting it. And a lot of women have a very hard time following through with that. Often what happens is this boundary isn't set, and the boundary that's set instead is after relapse, after relapse, after relapse, the woman finally gets to this point where she literally can't handle this anymore. She's going crazy. Her mental health is at stake, and she doesn't even know who she is anymore. She can't show up for her family the way that she needs to. And for her own safety and mental health, she has to say, if this happens again, I'm done. And that's actually the point that I got to. I wish that I had had a resource like this in my journey way back when we began, so that I knew to set the boundary that this isn't something you can just do on your own, and this will destroy me if you continue to relapse in our process. So this is my heartfelt plea to you. If you're at the beginning stages of your recovery journey, set this boundary now, so that he has the urgency to know he needs to go and get help. This is not something that he is highly likely to succeed with on his own. And unfortunately, you really don't know how much you can take. You don't know until you've gone through lies and betrayal trauma when you're going to have to be done. It really is a ticking time bomb if you do not set those boundaries of him being with somebody that can give him specialized help by a certain time. So the last step after you've set your boundaries is to lay out clearly what you will need to do if those boundaries are not respected. Now, this is extremely important that you mean it, because if you don't mean it, then what happens is when you don't follow through, then his brain learns from that you'll forgive him, that the boundaries don't mean anything, that he can continue to put you through this and he's not going to lose you. So that's why when you make these boundaries, you got to make sure it's super duper clear to him what you will need to do if the boundary is not respected. Now, sometimes that can be like a two-step process. Like the first step is you guys are going to have to separate. You're going to separate your finances. You're going to live in different rooms in the house, and you're going to completely begin to distance yourself and separate your life. And then the second step could be that you actually separate physically and that you move into another home. Now, those consequences for breaking the boundary could be two-step, three-step processes, but they have to hurt. They have to be something serious. Whatever that looks like for you is what it's going to look like for you. You just have to know that the boundary consequence has to be painful enough for him that it's going to matter to him and be something that you can follow through with. Now, I want to make it clear here that the woman is never the one responsible for the saving or the destruction of the relationship. This is due to his addiction. This is due to his choices and what he ends up deciding to do as a result of needing to change. If he's willing to change and he does the work, that's great. And that's awesome. You can have some input that may help him make that decision, but also you may not be able to help him make that decision. And again, that's not on you. So I never want anything I say here to make it sound like I'm putting it on the woman to be responsible for what he does. It is always up to him, and he is 100% responsible for what he does or doesn't do. And you are never obligated to stay in a relationship where someone is hurting you or is being unfaithful to you. Now, if you decide to stay because you want to see if you can save this relationship, that's amazing. I think it's really important here that we understand that we can hold compassion for who he is, why he is the way he is, what has brought him to this place in his life where this is destroying him and destroying his relationship and his family, and hold space that he is 100% responsible for those decisions and for what he does once he understands what this is doing to his life. And hold the truth for you that you are an autonomous person who has full right to make the decisions that you believe are right for you in your life. I hope this clears up some confusion around boundaries, and I hope this gives you a clear laid out plan for if you haven't set boundaries yet and you are in a situation where your partner is addicted to porn, exactly what that can look like and how you can set boundaries in a way that can actually move your relationship towards recovery together. If this podcast has been helpful for you, please give us a rating and review and share it with anybody that you think it might benefit. Take care, and we will see you soon. Remember to be your programmer.